Hello, thank you,
Hello.
audience. I would like to welcome you to our second annual Family Instability and Reunification Conversations. Normally, at this time of year in June, we would be having a lovely gathering in which we would be able to see your faces, greet each other with a bump or with a handshake. But unfortunately, due to COVID, we're not able to do so this year. And so we wanted to make sure that we kept the awareness going, as well as the conversation around family stability and family strengthening in the conversations, especially during a time as this, where at times we may feel a bit isolated, self-isolated, and due to some of the stay-at-home orders, depending on where you are in the country, or particularly here in Los Angeles or Los Angeles County, it could be quite a strain on family relationships, as well as a strain on the household as a whole. And so just to get this whole conversation started, I want to introduce myself. Of course, my name is Janet Kelly, and I am the Executive Director of Sanctuary of Hope. And what Sanctuary of Hope does is we provide housing and education stabilization services for youth and young adults and families between the ages of 16 and 25 who are either foster care, homeless, extremely low income, or what we call at promise young people. And so again, we would like to welcome you to today's conversation. But before we get started, one of the things that we definitely want to reflect on is, what is this conversation actually going to center on? And so, one, this conversation is going to be about how our families are able to thrive after reunification, tools that will help families strengthen their nucleus units, as well as ways in which certain histories or factors or drivers, such as immigration, help young people tap into their resiliency and engage mentors to support the reunifying process. And so, again, last year's conversation was an amazing hit and reached various platforms across the nation. When I say various platforms across the nation, as well as internationally. And so one of the things that, again, we want to really hone in on are, what are the tools for young people to succeed? How does mentorship play a role in that process? What are the experiences around reunification? So it's very important that for the audience to have an open ear with this conversation. And so before we get into that, I am going to invite our guests to share a little bit about themselves and who they are. And we're going to do this, we switch the screen. We're going to do this in a way in which I'm going to call you, and hopefully you can share. We're going to try to keep the sharing to 1 minute to 3 minutes about yourselves. So first, our first panelist that we're going to introduce to you is James E. Wheeler. We call him Jim. He's an educator from Los Angeles, California, and he also lives in Louisville, Kentucky. So he's a youth advocate in Louisville and has grown in his relationship with Alejandro, who was one of our recent family reunification participants. So Jim, would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm an educator in the JCPS school district out here, which is probably the largest school district in Kentucky. The background, the demographics and such is a lot of student friends who are being raised by single parents, grandparents, and a lot of them foster care. There's student friends who are kind of going through a lot of different challenges in their lives. So I was blessed with respect to having my son be a part of your program when he headed back to Southern California. My son was his personal life coach slash mentor while he was there. And, although he was born and raised in California, it was actually more the Valley, California, as opposed to LA specifically. But, through my son's mentoring and his positivity and just coaching him, Alex was able to, he came back and he stayed with me for about maybe a couple months, a little bump in the road, but he is doing much better now. In fact, I just met with him just about a couple hours ago. Had to go ahead and help him fill a prescription of his, and he'll be 26 in a few weeks. But again, I contribute a lot of his growth to what he gained from your program, because he had to really just kind of come to who he was and realize a lot of things that were kind of holding him back from being his best self. So that's my story. I'm glad to be here. I support all you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you so much. And so our next guest that we have with us is Yanyo. Help me pronounce your last name, Yanyo.
Inohosa. Yani Inohosa.
So Yanyo is a youth who was recently reconnected with his sister in Texas, the city of Houston. His parents were immigrants from the country of Colombia and who left the country in recent years. And so he, from what we know about his resiliency and tenacity, was able to find employment. He's doing really well, and he's adjusting to life in Houston. So Yanyo, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and
my name is Yanni. My name is Yanni Inohosa. I was part of Saturated Hope, like not too long ago, like 3 months ago. At first, when I went to California, I was living with a friend, and it ended up like I ended up being homeless a little bit. So I called the gatekeeper, which contacted to the Saturated Hope, which blessed me with a place to stay for a good 3 months. And due to the COVID, they extended my stay, so I was blessed to stay a little bit longer. And then when I was down there, I was working in Rouse, for a good month, or not a month, like a month and a half. And then after that, like I got able to reconnect with my people, and I'm just blessed to be in contact with y'all. So I'm blessed to just be in contact with my family again. Thank you for everything, to be honest.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you being a part of our program and also sharing with with our audience today about your experience with Sanctuary of Hope, and look forward to the deep dive that we're going to do shortly. Also with us, it's more of a kind of like, where are we now? We had Mr. Collins Dawson, who was a part of our first annual Family Instability Reunification conversation here in Los Angeles. And at that time, he and Poor, who is his son, were going through, or were about to, at that time, return home and reconnect. And so Mr. Dawson is an engineer who currently resides in Providence, Rhode Island, along with Newport and his family. And from what we do know, that since Newport's return, Mr. Dawson has adjusted well with the reunification of Newport, and we're looking forward to learn from him any insights that he could have or share about reconnecting and especially reconnecting with his son. So, Mr. Dawson.
Right. Thank you very much. So Newport, he's doing well. But again, I want to thank you guys for your blessings. Without you guys, I think you guys play a vital role in his life right now. That was a turning point for him. Being in California, I remember him calling me crying that all his document has been stolen. He has nowhere to sleep. And like a couple of weeks later, he said he's okay. Okay, fine. But with you guys in his life, he's adjusting. I mean, California taught him a lesson. And I guess some of us tend to learn the hard way. So he's adjusting. He's not where he needs to be yet, but it's a slow progress, and it's a progress in a positive way. So things are going right with him. I mean, he started calling me dad like a month ago, which it's surprising. He's my stepson. So he started calling me dad all of the I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, he's doing well. He was working before the COVID, and the COVID he's not working right now. But like right now, he's sitting in the lawn, blanket on the lawn, sitting alone, sunbathing and reading a book. So he's living his dream life right now. Yeah. As far as relationship goes, we are having a good relationship right now in a positive direction. And again, thanks to you guys. What is left is little here and there. You know, he's 22 years old, so he's a full-grown man right now. So he's playing the role as a senior brother for his little siblings. But it's up to the point whereby he can take the mantle and lead, you know, as a big brother, whereby he can do stuff like getting his driver's license, for instance, you know, doing other stuff that 22-year-old, now a grown man, is not a boy anymore, would do. That is a point that we move into that direction. But as far as everything goes, he's doing well. And thank you, guys.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then last but not least, of course, we have with us my son, who is a life coach with our Family Connect program here within Los Angeles. And I'm going to allow my son not only to introduce himself, but to share a little bit briefly about the Family Connect program.
All right. So how y'all doing? You know, I can't really see folks, but it's great to see y'all. My name is my son, Xavier Wade. I work as a life coach here for Sanctuary of Hope, Family Reconnect. Family Reconnect is about facilitating, reunifying families. Sometimes you have a lot of youth coming out to Los Angeles and other parts of California, you know, pursuing dreams and going on just different experiences and life journeys. And sometimes they encounter things that are unexpected and may be in need of some type of like resources and support. And a lot of us look at 18 and beyond as being like strictly adults, but like it's really, you're kind of like a developmental adult where like, you know, your body is in an adult form, but your mind is still like developing. So it's like, it's important to help re-encourage and help guide without directing, but like guiding the youth and allowing them to see like the best parts of themselves. So when it comes to like family reunification, what's different between this and like other types of services is that we are, in most cases, hands-on when it comes to like family and communication. And because there's a reason for the youth embarking upon the journey, and oftentimes things have changed with them being away. So it's important to try and help folks get on the same page, or at least be in the same chapter of a book when it comes to them returning home. So I learned a lot about myself during the process because I didn't realize how young this age was. You know, I thought about certain thoughts I had when I was that age, and I'm just grateful for like the growth, because life is long. You know, childhood is fast, but like adulthood is longer. So like it's a certain type of patience that you have to have.
Great. Thank you so much. And so before we start really getting into the conversation, I wanted to share a couple of visuals with you that I think are really important. And these visuals are some of the same visuals that we shared last year at our first annual family conversations. And so the first visual, we're getting it pulled up right now, is around family time. Oh, yeah. Oh. And one statistic that really kind of hit home for me was this whole notion about how we're spending less time together. And so, for example, the American family spends just 37 minutes in quality time. And parents have fewer hours to dedicate to their children due to the time crunch of balancing work and family. So that means within 24 hours a day, the most important people in our lives, the people that we're caring for, are getting less or at 37 minutes of time. So we know that family conflict is a key driver of youth homelessness, or it's a key driver of having youth who feel a need to leave the home, or they feel a need to exhibit behaviors within the home. And so the work that we're centering ourselves on is, how do we get to a point where we can prevent the family conflict, as well as how are we able to strengthen the family nucleus by providing the tools to deal with family conflict. There is another key visual that we wanted to share, which was around the dinner table. Because for those of us who grew up much later in life and don't want to really share how mature we are in our days, a lot of us ate at the dinner table and we had discussions about our day and what has happened and all those things that happened at the dinner table, or those things that happened around food. And so there was a statistic that was put out that 60 years ago, the average dinner time was about 90 minutes. So that means 90 minutes, not only were you eating, you were having a conversation, you were getting to know a little bit more about your family unit, probably how it operates, even how folks were feeling. But today, at dinner time, at the table, we're spending less, or at 12 minutes. 12 minutes within a 24-hour day. So what does that say about our families at this present time? So who would like to weigh in on that? Jim?
Well, yeah, that those statistics are telling. I think the dynamics have changed with respect to family, but also when you factor in the technology, i.e., like phones, all the things that come with having a phone, the technology and the social network. I think that becomes a distraction, and so my take on something like that is that I know it could be a challenge, but perhaps, I don't know, the family unit, be it two parent family, one parent, or whomever is, that adult in the family, maybe take like one day out of the week, start with one day, and dedicate that to just eating, having dinner, eating, and and entering into dialogue and having conversation. Transitioning into doing that, and maybe one day turns into two. But again, I see it in the schools, whereas the distraction are the technology. A lot of the unfortunately, a lot of parents that I have conversations with are young parents, and a parent or a single parent, oftentimes, again, there's no judgment, it's just an observation. They're using technology, whether it's a PlayStation or a phone, as a babysitter. And then that just becomes difficult, because now you have a it becomes a habit. It becomes, just in terms of this is the expectation. One of the things that I started doing this past Christmas is giving presents, especially to my lady and to her grandson and to her youngest daughter. All of her daughters, actually, a book. Gave them books, and each book was different, kind of based upon what I thought would resonate with them. And so I told them, going forward, again, it's what I do. So, every Christmas, expect a book from Jim. And, so I remember they opened up. It was funny because I had it wrapped. It was real big, and they were opening it up, taking all the wrapping out of it, looking like this. And they, what?
Well, we know that books and reading are very important. Very important. So, Yanyo, would you like to share a little bit about what your thoughts were about the statistics that were shown, especially with you being a young adult, and I think you're the only one, I believe, here who's had a history as it relates to your parents and immigration. So, did you have discussions around the dinner table, or how were your interactions, or how have your interactions been with your family?
The last thing I remember was like when I was like 10, and we had like a good group dinner, and we talked about a lot of different stuff. And like I would have like friends coming over, and we would still talk about a lot of stuff. It was the great days, But like right now, like a big fact is Wi-Fi, phones. Like people watch like go to YouTube and watch like funny videos while they eating now. That's something I do. Like I'll go on YouTube, put some funny videos while I'm eating, entertain me while I'm eating. But like it's been a minute to have a good conversation with family in a big dinner.
Yeah, so it's very important, I think, that for those who are a part of a family unit knows that it's very important that we carve out time where there's no technology at the table. What about you, Mr. Collins?
So kind of interesting. I grew up in Africa, okay? So dinner, it's a big deal. I grew up with my grandparents, and she has grandchildren, like 15 grandchildren, all live in the same house. So dinner time, everybody sit on it. It's like we don't have a table that can take all of us. So the family room, we all sit at the family room eating dinner and just talking loud. It's like a feast every dinner. It's not the same right now.
Oh wow, that's fantastic.
My kids do not want to be bothered when eating.
Oh really?
They don't even want to eat. You have to like, eating is like punishment to my kids.
Not my kids will eat you out of house and home, and they like being around the dinner table. It's quite hilarious.
Nice.
Just
Yep.
their stories and what they would like to share. So what I want to segue into is, can you share a little bit about kind of like your history? How did you end up coming to California, and how did that relate or tie back to your wanting to reunify with your sister in Houston. Can you share with our audience about that?
Can you repeat the question again? Like I didn't understand it.
So I said, can you share what led you to be here in California for your short kind of stint in time that you were here, or if you were here a little bit longer? And what was your reasoning for, or what kind of led you to want to reunify with your sister? If you could share with our audience a little bit of the background history.
The reason I came to California was because like I got a free ticket from a friend, and then plus like when I was in Houston before I went to California, I was like homeless, so it was like a big step for me to go to somewhere else, someone new, to learn new things. So I just decided to go, and then like when I came to California, I was living with my friend for a good minute, and then it ended up like his dad ended up not wanting me over there, so I had to look for a plan B, which I called the Sanctuary of Hope, and then they like hooked me up for a good place to stay. And then like what led to me to go back with my sister was that she reached out. At first I didn't know like what's the number and stuff. Like when she reached out, I was like, "Who's this?" And then she was like, "Hi, JC." And then like I remember her voice and everything. So like it was great. It was great. It was great. Like I don't know how to explain it, but it was just a great move. Like
So,
like talking about God.
so your parents are from Colombia, right?
Yes. Yeah, they're from Colombia.
And now they're back in Colombia. Were they were here in the United States before?
Yeah, they was my like it was just like some weird stuff happened, which ended up them going back to Colombia. I really don't want to talk about it, but yeah.
Okay. And so your connection with your sister, how was that facilitated? Like, how did you connect with your sister to start building the relationship so that you could return from or move from California to Texas?
Before like we even talked, like I haven't talked to her since I was homeless, like which was like a year and some change. So when she contacted me, it was like I was surprised. So ended up we didn't ended up talking more, which led her saying you come back to my house, which I just said okay. It was better for me because like I'm not used to California at all, and I didn't have the people, so it was just the right moves to make at the time. It
Great.
still is.
And so, Myson, can you weigh in on how kind of the Family Connect program helped with the facilitation of reconnecting him with his sister?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah,
Like
my sister's calling myself. Now you go ahead, Yanyo. I'll tag in after you.
oh no, you go.
Nah, so normally it really is based on the speed that the that the youth wants to take it. I mean, Yanyo was definitely a special case because he was always like very, very hands-on. And so after that, you reach out to the family and like see how they feel. Now, whether that's someone's cousin or brother, or in this case, a sister, it's really more about just trying to like establish like that comfort zone, because sometimes you got to like put in the work. Sometimes there's certain like demands that are needed. Sometimes like you really have to just establish that common ground, because you don't want them to go and then there's still certain types of friction and then come back, because we're only here for a minute. So like it's important to try and establish an understanding, and a certain level of respect, because certain journeys away are important. And honestly, I'm glad you took that journey away, dog. Like sometimes it's good to like go travel for a minute, because you can learn to appreciate home. You know what I mean? But so it's really almost like being a referee at the game, except there's not two teams playing against each other. It's like we're all working towards the same goal.
Mm-hmm. And so, what would you say your relationship was like with Myson? throughout
Tyson,
the process?
great person to me. Like, he put me on a lot of game. Like, I never thought I would get the type of game he gave me, and also just like he helped me. Like, he gave his all to help me to connect with my sister, which I really grateful with. Appreciate his character and everything. And thank you again for like, I don't know who founded the Sanctuary of Hope, but thank you for working for Sanctuary of Hope and making this possible.
Oh, no, thank you. You did the work. And so, Yango is an example of kind of the work that we do to reunify families. But a lot of times we don't get into kind of what happens next. Like, what happens like after the young person is back at home? What are some of the things or processes that the family goes through in order to create kind of this sense of stability and also the resiliency of the young person after? Really, it's after. So it's the what's next. And so Mr. I keep saying Mr. Collins because it's easier to say Dawson. Mr. Collins, since you were kind of one of the first families that was reunified through our family reunification program, what was kind of like, what was the next? What was, some of the things that helped kind of Newport, you and the whole family unit gel together?
I gotta give credit to my son. He plays a vital role in all that. He was a catalyst of making it happen. So he glued everything together. I got a call from him saying, "Hey, Newport." I'm like, "Who is this?" And my wife, then my fiancée, she's like, "That is Newport's mother." She goes, "Who's this guy?" So I'm like, he said Newport, and I said, "Okay." So basically got together. It's like plane ticket, what do you call it? Hotel, rented everything together, moving. I'm like, wow, these guys are really serious. So I was really impressed with the process. And coming to LA, saw the process. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. You guys are really, boots on ground and all hands on deck. So it kind of made us took it serious because you're not part of our family, but you're taking it serious to help a member of our family. So we got to take it more serious also. So that kind of implements that seriousness for us to have a good relationship with Newport. Moving forward, we came back, the relationship is still great, but like I said, it's progressing day by day. And it's not where everybody wanted to be, but it's growing and we're keeping it that way. It's a slow pace, but it's on a positive direction and we love it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Jim, Mr. Wheeler?
Yeah, I probably echo what Mr. Dawson said. It's a journey. It's a process. When Alejandro came back, I had expectations or intentions that I had brought forth to him, and and he was an older person because he had just turned 25, and so my son knows how stubborn Alejandro can be, and so we just had to ride that, and so like I said, he stayed here for about 2 months or 3 months, and then it was better for both of us for him to move out, find his way, and but we're still at this point we're talking about using your phrase, reunifying back to my spot, and again, like what Mr. Dawson said, he's much better than what he was, but I recognize that it's not microwave. It's kind of a crock pot sort of processing, where it has to simmer and marinate. And so, that's, what we're going through right now. And again, our relationship is getting better and better every day. And but again, much props kind of go to my son, because when he was there, he was handling his business. Again, I think he had a job at Costco, and so it again, I recognize now that it's, like I said, it's a journey, it's a process. So I'm grateful for you guys.
And so, my son, what are some of the aftercare supports that you provide once the youth has been placed with the family? So, what is the aftercare supports that's directed towards the young person, and what are the aftercare supports that are directed towards the whole family unit or household?
So honestly, it's kind of like being Alfred on Batman. You know what I'm saying, like, where Batman's in the field and like you're trying to help navigate, and Google becomes your best friend, because it's like, okay, hey, you can see about a gig over here, or see more productive vacation is with different, sometimes you'll have a youth who may decide to go and like live in another area, and sometimes I may have to navigate them like state to state, so it's all about just you go from being hands-on to kind of like being the radio in the background, so you just help them find whatever they need.
Okay, and so what would you all say are some of the challenges related to reunification, if there is a challenge? Daniel, would you like to start first? Are there any challenges? What would you say is a challenge to reunification?
Like at first, it's not a challenge, but like before the situation, like of me reconnecting to my sister, it was like a little delay due to the fact like my sister was taking a little bit long what she's supposed to, but at the end of the day, like we got reconnected, and that's a blessing. That's the only challenge I could say.
Okay. What about you, Mr. Wheeler?
I think the challenge is when they were with the program, they had structure that was given them, and I think it's important that the young adult, with my support, creating a structure and being flexible within that structure, that allows them to progress at a rate that's comfortable for them. So I had a conversation with Alice not too long ago in terms of just being mindful of knowing how much you can put on your plate. Some folks can put a lot on their plate. Some folks can put very little on their plate, or just know what you can put on your plate. So it's just kind of creating a structure that leads them towards becoming like their best self.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do, is help these young people realize their promise and potential and to get to their best selves. What about you, Mr. Dawson?
I think I'll reflect what Jim said. Mm-hmm. So it's about them meeting the expectation. So coming back home, it's like we have family values, and you need to meet those expectations. And I'll speak for Newport specifically. He was having a hard time meeting those expectations. And it's like being a bigger brother, little kids are looking up to him, and it got to a point he was frustrated. It's like, okay, you're making a lot of yourself. You need to catch up, you know. But then I realized he was going through a lot. It's emotional. It's internal. So it's like, okay, later I was like, let's scale back. So I told my wife, let's scale back and let him voice it out. Let's talk to him and let him voice it out. So he got it out. And it's like, after he got it out, it's like, okay, now I'm ready. So, yeah.
And I think sometimes, you know, when we're part of our family units, whether you're a parent, a sister, or whoever you are that is considered or deemed family, we have to be able to step outside ourselves and be able to listen and to hear kind of what's going on. And even at sometimes it's you know, we don't throw ourselves in, but allow our young people to kind of get it all out so they feel as if that they have been heard. So, Myson, would you like to share a little bit about that and wrap us up around that?
Okay, you know what? Seek to understand. It's just it's so important, and that's something that I had to experience because I have a younger brother who's 25 years old, and you know, we're going through a state of healing where I feel like as a family, and this is not necessarily anything to do with Family Reconnect, but as far as my own family reconnect, like as far as a family, sometimes you can focus too much on what their obligations are as opposed to like seeing where they are. And sometimes you can create a situation where the setting can feel less intimate because it's all about obligations and standards when sometimes you got to just see where they're at. Like, never mind the obligation, never mind the standard. How are you? And how are you feeling? Because at the end of the day, this is not obligation reconnection or employment reconnection. This is a family reconnection, you know? So like the task and the development is primary, but in some cases it has to be secondary, especially when it comes to rebuilding a bond.
Right. So what kind of advice would you share for, in your case, Yanko, a young person who may be homeless on the street or maybe thinking about running away, or in that particular situation about things that they can do to either stop themselves from ending up homeless or running away, or engaging in behaviors that may put them in harm's way? What advice would you share with young people out there?
With my experience, I look at every day just a blessing to be awake and to just learn new experiences. Because at the end of the day, being homeless is just a temporary, and I'm just thankful to experience this when I was like this young age, 19, 20, just to learn new experiences and to better myself in a way, spiritually, and physically, and mentally, and just just put on a smile, put on a smile. Don't let homeless defeat you in a way. Just make every day a better day. Just know that you're gonna be somebody in life, or just know you're gonna be making money, You know, just continue being you. Don't try to be somebody else, because at the end of the day, you're God made you for a reason.
Yes, and I think one of the important things that you have pointed out that I think a lot of people don't realize or associate with young people is that young people don't choose to be homeless on the street. Like, circumstances lead young people to be homeless on the street. Just like you're moved here to California, you're staying at a friend's house, and all of a sudden the father or the person, the head of the household, no longer wants you to be there. And then this whole ripple effect starts, right?
Yeah.
How do you get past the ripple effects? And I think what you demonstrate is how you tap into your own resiliency to get past the ripples.
I just cause I'm career driven. I just got a job, and then start working, so I could just add on my chips, and then eventually I could just find a place. But luckily, I was blessed to reconnect reconnected with my sister in a way. So really, just by just by making every day a great positive day. I really don't like I don't know, like I just looked at every day just something positive. I didn't let this homelessness or situation affect me, because I know I'm better than this. And then it was just perfect, you know. I don't know, like yeah.
Well, again, that's what I said. It's very important, I think, for people to know how young people really tap into that resiliency, and that it's a matter of how things happen. So we have a question that came from the audience. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask it. So one of the questions that has come up was, what are the conditions in the community that contribute to family instability? So is it the inequitable distribution of resources, police and community violence, the overconcentration of liquor stores and drugs, the lack of access to quality health care? So the question is, for whoever would like to chime in on this, what are the conditions in the community that contribute to family instability, to quality health care?
I can take that if y'all cool with that. I can go and take this one real quick. All right. You know what? So it is a variety of factors, and those factors that are mentioned definitely play a part. But something that I've observed is that it really depends on like how your high school years go, and like as far as the skills that you develop, and at the same time, what the bond that you have with your parents or like family that's involved. There's not as many programs and after school programs and resources that are in schools. They're still there, but you have to like work harder to find them. And on a family tip, sometimes I've observed that parents become less hands-on, a little more hands-off. I used to work at elementary school, and the parents were a lot more hands-on. But like you see your child growing, and then you feel like, okay, you know, you pretty much got this at this point. And they still have so much more development and so much more love and understanding that they need. So like certain resentment will develop. And law enforcement is a different conversation, because I think that's more about how you were perceived, not necessarily who you are. So like when a child isn't necessarily understanding the importance of learning what you love, you have what you're passionate about, you know, what your dreams are, you know, but you also have to have what you don't mind doing until your dreams are feasible.
Right.
You know, so I think like that's important. And when youth don't receive this and all they know is their dream, and they want to, you know, come to California or someone else and go see about it, it's almost like you're trying to build a foundation on sand. You know, it's not impossible, but you know, if you're learning a certain skill or a certain trade that will, you know, help you as far as like in your music career or, you know, any other type of aspirations that you have, it really comes, it'll help you when it comes to managing your resources. Now, another part to that is the love and family love. A lot of the youth that we work with, we're getting to them after their traumas and after certain things that they don't necessarily want to talk about. And it's almost like, you know, I pledged a fraternity in college, but it's almost like if you weren't there during the critical parts of their process, and then you're demanding their respect as an older brother when you weren't there, it's a little harder to receive that respect. So like some youth resentment comes in the form of certain things that they may not have received during high school, because we figured, hey, I mean, you already got it. You know, you got what you need, you know, you got good grades, and we're only judging from that margin, when it's really more about the love and the insecurities and understanding during certain questions that the youth may have about themselves, because their bodies are changing, their minds are growing. Like it's a variety of factors that contributes to that. Now, as far as now, if you don't have the resources and you were in this, now you're in the neighborhood where you're treated and viewed as an adult, and there's not a lot of resources in this neighborhood that you live in, and you haven't been prepared, this leaves a lot more youth more vulnerable to experience the poverty and experience the shortcomings, which fuel the frustrations and fuel the resentment. So 3 parts to it: the emotional love and care, even as they grow, even if they act like they're too cool for it, like they still really, really need it. Preparation when it comes to understanding the difference between your dreams and then what you love and then what you don't mind doing versus like your passion. Like those are 2 parts. And then it comes back to how a youth will, how a youth views themselves. Because like negative perceptions that like law enforcement, and I'm not generalizing, but law enforcement, most of them they have about you, right, comes from what they may be taught in certain cultures that they are groomed in. But if you're feeling a certain level of frustration and then this conflict occurs, or this point where they're trying to get you to yield in a situation, no matter what it is, no matter who's right or wrong, sometimes that frustration can lead to some of these situations that spill out of control. Mm-hmm. You know, so like there's just a variety of levels when it comes to that. So like to that question, all of those are factors, but the more important factors are what is being placed inside the child in preparation for them to leave home.
Right. And so does anyone want to contribute to what Mike has said, you know, as far as the community being a factor, or whether the community being the social or physical environment, or those various points that were mentioned as a part of the question?
I can chime in. I pretty much am echoing, what my son said, but more importantly, also too, with the young man who's part of our panel, what I get from him in any question he's responded to, mm-hmm, there is a level of faith that comes through. Yes. And again, I'm, not talking about anybody's religion. I'm talking about a faith or a spirituality, something higher than yourself that's your moral compass. And again, I've never used the word homeless. And again, when I was in California, I made myself available in feeding folks who are in transition. And I cut down my vocabulary years ago because, I would be speaking to folks who are in transition, and I would say, look, we're all in transition from something or another. Perhaps maybe it may be more apparent with some or others, but we're all in transition. We're going through something. And so that's what I get from, our young man on the panel, who that's been his moral compass, because, again, there's a lot of potholes where I'm a teacher in JCPS. I mean, it's a lot. And I'm only with these students maybe 4 or 5 hours a day. So they have to kind of go home to what they see in front of them. So I try and create with them in terms of letting them know that no matter what, you're enough. You're enough. You are enough. And to just kind of let them resonate with that, because again, it can be tough for someone to move themselves out of the potholes and the challenges in terms of, where they, their family. So again, just going back to a young man on our panel, I think it's a moral compass of faith that guides you to say that there's something beyond. I know I'm going through a hallway right now, but I know it's a hallway. I know there's a light there, and it's my faith that's going to get me through, my transitional period.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right, young. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Dawson, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I agree with what Jim and my son said. But also, when it comes to the environmental attributes like liquor store, drugs, police brutality and all that, like my son said, it plays a vital role. But what is implanted into the person is as a person overcomes those environments. So if I know I'm better than the liquor store, I mean, if I grew up in a neighborhood whereby there's liquor store at every corner, I would think alcohol is part of life. So everybody got to drink alcohol. But in the house, if it's been planted in me that alcohol is not good, even though we're living here, it's temporal. So alcohol can make you up as you grow up. Or drugs at the corner of every street where I'm growing up. I would think drug is okay. But if it's implanted in me that drugs are not good, do not contribute to that, then as a person, individual person, I know I should shy away from that. So yes, those attributes, environmental attribute, plays a role in the upbringing of the young adults, but also the in-house education contributes more. So how, like my son said, how we interact with our kids or young adults, let them know they loved. I mean, we know the same. And as a parent, we all know parenthood doesn't come with a guidebook or anything. I mean, fatherhood or motherhood doesn't come with a guidebook. There's no guidebook about it. So it's like you teach what you know. The way you were brought up, that's how you're going to reflect on your children. But there's an African saying that it takes a whole village to raise a child, which is true. And I believe in that. So if I talk to Newport, he doesn't listen, I get his grandmother involved. I get his uncles involved. And he knows, okay, this guy is not joking. He really means business. So that message cut across, he knows, okay, I got to stop this then. Because not just him, it's everyone talking about it.
Right.
So you're planting something important within the person. It's more important than, so again, it comes back to the reaction is important than the action. The actions are there, the environmental attributes are there, but the reaction to those attributes, it's much more important.
Yeah. Right. And so we're about to transition to our second panel, which is going to be our panel of thought leaders here within our Los Angeles region in the areas of youth development and also family strengthening. But I do want to say for this first panel, I want to thank you all very much for you sharing with our audience. I think some important takeaways that our audience are going to get or learning from you is that number one, we need to let our young people know that they are enough, that we care, that we love them, that we're here or and are part of their transition. And even though that transition to adulthood may come with obstacles and challenges, we are here. We're here as a family unit. We're here as a village. I think the second takeaway from all this is that when there's an issue where our young people leave our family units, that it's an opportunity to demonstrate how we can overcome those challenges or those instances or drivers that may lead to our young people no longer being in our home and our young people returning back home. And I think the last thing I think that our audience is really going to take away from this is the level of youth and young adult resiliency, the things that our young people go through and the things that they invest personally in order to reunite with their families. Whether, as in Yango's case, you go out, you get a job, you maintain a positive outlook on your life, you maintain that level of positivity, and as Jim referred to it as your level of faith and that fortitude to not only persevere, but to demonstrate that, yes, you are going to realize your promise, you are going to realize your potential, and all those things that happen along the way. And then in the case of my son, who is our life coach, that's a part of our Family Connect program, why mentorship and having loving and caring adults in your life could be a good way or strong facilitation in in helping our families reunite as well as become a strong family unit. And so, Tori, we're waiting to see Tori on the screen. And so before we kind of get into our thought leader panel, we're waiting for Tori to show up on the screen. I think it's important for us to segue into talking about what is family strengthening, what is youth development. And so what we're going to do is pull up on the screen two graphics that are going to share a little bit about what those two terms are and how that fits within our framework of talking about family reunification, and also fits into our framework of talking about how do we strengthen families. One of the aspects of our Family Connect program is building and fostering relationships. And those relationships normally take a period of time to develop, whether it's the relationship with the youth, the relationship with the family, getting individuals into a comfort zone of wanting to talk about the issues that are disrupting the family unit so that the family again can gel back together. So when we talk about what is family strengthening, this is what it is. Family strengthening is a deliberate process of giving parents, and in this case families, however it's defined, the necessary opportunities, relationships, networks, and supports to rear their children successfully, which includes evolving parents, and in this case, families, as decision makers in how their communities meet their family needs. Good to see you, Tori. So that's one definition of family strengthening. And so the other graphic that we have that's coming up is going to explain what, because I think in the first panel, we heard a lot about working with young people in the process of their transition. How we see young people within our own kind of personal reflections of who they are and where they are at within their own development. And even sometimes, even with myself, I have to catch myself from not getting into the whole adulting or the maturity of my own children, of seeing where they are and having these expectations about who they are and where they should be in this current process in their own particular development, because it's a different day and age, it's a different generation, where they see themselves in their own kind of maturing or developing phase of where they're at and who they are. And so I think it's a component that most people, when we talk about youth development, don't understand it because they don't view it in the same way as I'll know him, or majority of us know him here within the Los Angeles region as a community thought leader, as well as an activist here within the region. He's a proud father, he's a proud grandfather. He was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, for those of you who have a connection to Louisiana. He's also an artist, an educator, a writer, a poet. He is the architect of the Lemert Cultural Renaissance, but also in addition to that, he is the founder and he leads a nonprofit agency that works with young people. And one program that many of us are very familiar with is See a Man, Be a Man, and Princess to Queen. And he is also a thought leader around strategies in working with young people, and particularly, my understanding, or my past history of knowing him, youth of color or black youth as well. And so we're very fortunate to have him. You can read his full bio there in the feed, but we also have with us Gail. Gail is a licensed marriage family therapist. She is our, here at Sanctuary of Hope, I've noticed that some of the young people have been referring to her as Auntie Gail. Staff has been referring to her as Auntie Gail, which I think it's a term of endearment, but Gail is, again, provides a lot of the therapy services here at Sanctuary of Hope. She was born and raised in Watts. She's a native of Los Angeles. She's also a passionate advocate and leader within the mental health and justice field. She also serves as an adjunct professor. And so before her bio as well should be posted in the feed. And so before I get into this whole discussion about what youth development is and read it off to you all and have our thought leaders weigh in, Tori and Gail, I want to kind of take a little bit, 1 to 3 minutes of having you two share about yourselves. And so first we will begin with you, Gail.
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone. First of all, it is just a pleasure to be here this morning, and this conversation has just been rich. So thank you so much for inviting me to be on this panel as a thought leader. So thank you again. So as Ms. Kelly said, I'm a licensed marriage family therapist. I'm also an adjunct professor at California Baptist University. My passion is mental health, and let me tell you, growing up in Watts, that is still home to me. But growing up in that area just kind of produced and shaped my attention and my love for my community and those who are voiceless. So I have a lot of experience working with transitional age youth, those who are still in the foster care system, and for several years worked with survivors of human trafficking. And so I've worked a lot with reunification and helping and assisting, being a support to those who are reunifying with their families and however that looks. So again, my passion is just mental health and serving our community, serving communities beyond ours in the areas in which they need. That's just a little bit about me. Thank you.
Tori? Tori, can you hear? Or can you unmute?
Yes.
Okay.
How are you? Thank you so much for inviting me here. Can you hear me? Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I actually am in New Orleans right now visiting my mom, so I'm back to the place where I was born. Very happy to be here. Yes. Yeah, I've spent most of my life working with, I guess, what you would call at-risk youth. I call them talented, gifted youth. And they remind me of myself. I grew up without a father. And when you grow up without that image in your family, in your space, you have to try to create your own space, your own image of what you want to be. See a Man, Be a Man program comes out of my imagination of what kind of father I would have liked when I was growing up. And also in my own life, I imagined the kind of father that I wanted when I was growing up, and that's what I want to be to my 4 daughters. So I'm always striving to be better. I'm always striving to improve myself and my skills as a father. And really, there's not much difference between what I do with my children and what I do in the classroom. And that is to give them love and attention, to listen to them more than I talk, because they have a lot of the answers to their own issues. We just have to listen and assist them in the process of transforming their lives. And that's really what I do, you know. But at the core of what I've been able to do is to share with them their history and their culture. When they walk into the classroom, there are images that remind them of their own selves, of their own lives, their own communities. People like Dr. King and Malcolm X and Ida B. Wells and others are on the walls. We play the music of Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke and Curtis Mayfield and Tupac. And so it's just about like getting back to who we are, reminding us of our greatness. And it's just an honor to have worked with the young people over the years, and I hope to continue many more years.
Great, and we're thankful for having you. So if we can bring up that slide on youth development. It's coming up. So as we look at the slide, youth development is a process that prepares a young people to meet the challenges of adolescence and the challenges of adolescence and adulthood, and to achieve his or her full potential. So I'm gonna read it one more time. Youth development is a process that prepares a young person to meet the challenges of adolescence and adulthood and achieve his or her full potential. And so you two have an opportunity to kind of sit and listen to the first panel, and I'm going to ask about some of your thoughts and reflections on that. But before we get to the thoughts and reflections, I want to go back to, if you guys were able to see the first slide about the statistics about family time, the statistics about dinner time. What were kind of some of your thoughts around those statistics that were shared? That we're spending less than 37 minutes of family time together, less than 12 minutes or at 12 minutes of dinner time together. What were some of your kind of thoughts that jumped out about those two statistics?
Yeah, you can go first.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, sure. Okay. So first of all, when I first saw that slide and heard the conversation around it, I mean, it is definitely it's disturbing to have that that understanding that we are moving farther away from investing our energies into building relationships within the family unit. And so my first thought was, whenever I'm sitting with a client or families, as a mental health professional, we're always assessing those relationships. And so it is important that we are very creative in the way we are intentionally building that bond, building that intimacy. And so depending on the age of that youth, depending on the age of the young adult, I mean, we're still playing games. We are going to be entering into their world. We're not going to be afraid to download the TikTok app, right? We're listening to their music. I'm listening to their lyrics. I'm asking them questions about it. So it's important for us professionally, if we're not, in mental health, wherever we are, it's important for us to be very creative and intentional and reestablishing that bond and intimacy. So in our household, when it's time for dinner, everything shuts down. Everything shuts down. We sit down, we talk about our day. I ask for highs, I ask for lows, and creatively ask for what was a wow this week for you. So we talk about that, but it has to be intentional. And it's beautiful. Sometimes parents think that, our young people, the youth don't want to really engage, but they do take an interest in their world and they will reconnect with us.
Tori?
Beautiful.
Great.
Yes, just last week, I sat down with my 4 grandchildren out of 5. I have a 16-year-old girl, 13-year-old girl, 11-year-old boy, and 5-year-old girl. And we sat down and played a game of Monopoly. Old school Monopoly, and it was great because you have to interact, you have to communicate, you have to listen to each other, learn the rules and everything, and it just helps you to engage. So I love games like that. We play chess. We play card games. That old school stuff that we used to do before we had access to all of this technology. And of course, eating with the TV off, talk to each other, listen to each other. And these are very basic things that we've gotten away from that have caused this rift in the family. Because if everybody's looking at their phone or looking at TV, that kind of limits communication. And so books are also critically important. I have a T-shirt that says, "Books saved my life." When you come to my mother's house in New Orleans, before you enter the door, she has a small mini library, and you can just take a book out for free. So my mother raised us on books, and I make that the cornerstone of my program and the cornerstone of my relationship with my children. When you walk into my house, you see books everywhere. And I just think that we have to make sure that these cultural nuggets are a part of our everyday lives. We have to keep these things alive and share them with our youngsters. Of course, I listen to their music, as Gail said, but I also introduce them to Sam Cooke and Temptations and Curtis Mayfield and, Aretha Franklin, Al Green, because they wouldn't be doing their music without those pioneers that started this whole thing. So, yeah, I think it's an exchange that we have to do, but definitely let's talk to each other and turn off some of these devices.
Absolutely.
Can you guys hear me?
Going back to our kind of the first panel, you were able to kind of have an understanding about family dynamics, right? Have an understanding about youth, how they transition through life and learn life lessons. That life, whether those life lessons relates to their housing insecurity, those life lessons relate to managing or developing their social, emotional selves. What were some of your thoughts about the first panel and what was shared from the youth and the family members who were reunited? Gail, let's start with you.
Sure. So I was just really, just impressed with the parents, first of all, too. I listened to what each one of them said, and listening to Mr. Wheeler when he talked about understanding his own expectations and his intentions of his child. And it sounded like he had to kind of, work through that and then renegotiate that. So his process with his child, his son, was different. And so he had to kind of, separate for a little while. And then they're talking about what it means to reunify. I thought that was good. It's important that parents be able to understand those expectations. Sometimes they're unrealistic and they're irrational. So it may take a little break. Then I remember Mr. Dawson was talking about his son being kind of like a glue, to the family. And that he said that it's not the pace. So I heard acceptance in Mr. Dawson, this acceptance that it's kind of a slow pace right now, but we've accepted that. It's going to be a growing relationship. And then with Yanyo, well, that's his name. Okay, beautiful name. I listened to how he reconnected with his sister. And it started out with a conversation. He said we were talking more and more. So it always goes back to how we communicate. It doesn't matter where we are. That communication is so important. So I just loved how each one of them, when they were speaking, I heard a different process, a different journey, but it all went back to effective communication.
Sorry.
Where we are, that communication is so important. So I just.
Right, can you hear us, or are we?
They were speaking, I heard a different process, a different journey. So it's all going back to effective communication.
We'll give it about another second.
Well, with me, I reflect on my son's relationship with Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you okay now. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Can you hear us?
1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe if you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, good. Okay, I reflect on my son's. Yes, I can hear you. Okay. I reflect on my son's relationship with the young man. The young man reminds me of a lot of my students, reminds me of myself. When you're searching for identity, searching for yourself, and you have a home like Sanctuary of Hope, you know, you've done a great thing by creating that organization, creating those safe spaces for young people to be in. You know, when you feel so alone and you're out there trying to find out which way to go, and you run into someone like my son who can become like a surrogate father. I guess we call them mentors, but back when I was growing up, there were just people who quite naturally were like what I call organic mentors. And they just took an interest in you and they showed you the way, or they helped you, or let you know that they were listening to you. And so the fact that you have an organization that can bring those two different people together, to me, is critical. And we need to grow organizations like yours. We need to create more organizations like that, because we have a lot of young people out here who are lost and searching, right? And so I just really felt so positive about the fact that they were able to come together and be in each other's lives. And that young man will never forget the impact that my son has made on his life as he goes forward. He has an image of a man that he can emulate, which will help him in his life as he becomes a father. Now he knows how to look back and help somebody else, how to treat his children. And so I just thought that it was a beautiful thing to bring those people together. And all of the brothers on the panel were very, very, very well spoken, and you could feel their hearts, the parents. Everybody's in a struggle somewhere, but we all need something to look forward to and something to work for and to live for in this life. And it's nothing better than helping somebody else. So I really enjoyed the panel.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you so much. One area that a lot of people miss the mark on as it relates to youth development is the piece that says we are helping them realize their promise and potential. Because I think that's in the nutshell what we're all working to do on the youth end. But a lot of times people miss the mark of what that entails and the level of patience that is required to help young people realize their promise and potential. And so in the case of Yanyo, he left where he was, relocated to California, was in transition, was asked to leave a place of comfort and safety that he came to, and then found himself in another series of transitions. And some people would say, well, the young person should have never left in the first place. He should have found a way to pick himself up by his own bootstraps. All those things are all kind of misconceptions around why you even go through a transition phase in itself. So Gil, can you weigh in on kind of what your thoughts are around youth development and how youth kind of develop and transition, especially when they face periods of crisis in their lives?
Absolutely, and that's a great question. So what comes to mind first, when I heard Yanyo and just think about other youth like him, you know, a lot of times in that age group, there are so many adversities that are stacking. There's so many adversities that are stacking against them and inside of them that, you know, they're unnoticed oftentimes. So there's an expectation that, you know, youth should be they should be developing the way we developed, that they should be responding in the way we responded. And sometimes I think we miss that culture is different. Culture impacts development. Someone asked earlier too, I thought that was a great question, whoever from the Facebook Live audience, I'm assuming, about the community impact, right? I agree with what everyone said, but I was thinking about a theory. I believe his name is Bronfenbrenner, the ecological model. I thought about that. He talks about these systems and how these systems interact. So this mesosystem, who affects me individually, then it goes out to this macro system, but the community impacts. What's in my neighborhood impacts me. My religious upbringing, my mother's job, my father's job, or the lack of job, it impacts me. So all of these things young people are carrying through each stage of development, on top of puberty, on top of possible mental health issues, on top of possible traumas, on top of relationships that they don't talk about, right? So being able to accept their development and seeing, their pace as being sufficient. That's the word that I heard earlier, sufficiency. And so I love that, because we have to be patient. We have to be patient with their growth and understand that there is a normal developmental process, but at the same time, that normalcy can be interrupted through adversities. We forget that sometimes.
Yes. Tori?
Yes, I just had a conversation with my 16-year-old niece. She's a 4.0 average in school, but she has no idea what she wants to do with the rest of her life. She doesn't know what she wants to major in when she goes to college. She may go to my school, USC. I'll help her, in that process. But she doesn't know her own gifts. So she's just like many of my students. One of the first things that we do is we help them to identify what their passion in life is. Mm-hmm. And we tell them, look, if you can identify what your passion is, and that is the thing that you would do on this earth that has nothing to do with money, it's just something that you love so much that you have to do it. Mm-hmm. For me, I knew what it was from an early age. I guess I was blessed in that way. Even though I didn't have a father in my life, I knew that I wanted to sing. I knew I loved sports. I knew I wanted to play an instrument and write and stuff like that and read books. And so that gave me something to work with. And so when you talk about promise, promise is only a possibility when you can identify who and what you are, and why you're here on this planet. And then the potential develops out of that promise. And so when you have a goal or an objective or vision, now you have something to work towards, but you have to know who you are. You have to know what your gifts and your talents are so that you can work on those things and begin to reach your potential. And we're there to help them to move along that road towards their potential. And when young people realize that they have potential, they realize that they can actually achieve something that they have in their minds, it just gives them the fire to fight through anything, the resiliency to survive anything and to persevere in spite of the odds. And so, I agree that promise and potential are critical elements to youth development. Thank you.
If I can add to that, Ms. Kelly, that's so good, Torrance. Thank you. Can I add to that? As he was speaking, when you talk about the mental health component, right? That is always that's a recurring universal goal with what Torrance just talked about. Always trying to help them find their identity and normalizing that sometimes, it takes years after turning 25. You're still working on that sense of, who am I? Who am I in this season? Who am I as a mother? Who am I as a wife? Who am I as a partner? Who am I as a professional? So that identity piece is extremely important. And it is very important that we kind of help them figure that out, because a lot of times they become identified with the traumas. They begin to believe that they are the traumas. They are in transition, that this is the cycle I'm most familiar with. So I'm stuck in that cycle, and that's who I am. So working hard to help them see that they're not the trauma. There is potential. We can find the identity, and that identity might just be, showing up on time to work right now. So being very creative in that.
Right. And so we shared at the beginning of our conversations that family conflict is the #1 driver of youth homelessness, or now we're going to use the term youth in transition.
Yes, that's good.
But I think that was very good for Mr. Wheeler to point out, because it helps kind of put that in a better positive view in life. And so oftentimes when family conflict arises, either you're not fully aware of what the actual conflict is, I think, for some families. And so how should we, when a young person comes to the point to where they're thinking about leaving their home, or they have already left their home, what are some of the activities that we should be doing to get to what the conflict is? Does that?
I'll go first on that one because I was 17 years old when I left home for the first time, wanting to be grown up, moved into an apartment with my girlfriend, quickly found out that there was more to being an adult than just, being able to make love to someone, right? There was paying the bills, there was getting somewhere on time, there was consistency and continuous, challenges that never stop as an adult. So you quickly learn the difference between being an adult and being maybe a grown young person in your parents' house. There's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I learned my lesson. That my little sojourn lasted for about 3 months. And then I found out that I needed some more growth and development before I could go out on my own,
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally did go out on my own at the age of 18, I enlisted in the United States Air Force.
Wow.
And then I wound up on the other side of the world in the Philippines, serving my time in the military and going through another process of growth and development, And so it's continuous, it never stops. But what I can say, what we can do for young people, we have to be direct and honest with them, and let them know, hey, something, you can really hurt yourself if you don't know what you're doing. And you really need to find somebody that you can trust and that you can listen to, because you don't know everything. You might think you know everything, but as an older person, I can guarantee you that you have a whole lot more to learn. And I want you to be safe. I don't want you to be hurt. And you really have to be kind of slow down a little bit and just let yourself naturally grow. Don't just push yourself out there. I pushed myself out there so fast that I took a big hit, and I always share my story with young people so they can know I'm just as vulnerable as you guys, and I'm still learning, But we all need a friend to listen to and to talk to, and we can make it,
Absolutely. Ms. Gail?
Sure. Authentic interest, authentic concern. Being able to sit there and really ask questions that you can discern they're ready to go, to answer. And if they're not ready, being able to respect that. But I believe that when you are authentic and you really care and you have empathy and you are trauma informed, you want to know what happened. What happened? What is the narrative? What's the real narrative from their perspective? And hearing them out and not refuting and not disputing. So direct questions. A question like, what do you wish your dad knows about you? What do you wish your mother would know about you? What do you wish your sister, if she was sitting right here, what do you want her to know about you, or that conflict that happened? So being able to dig in, but ask questions that really show, I just want to know your story. And to be honest and say, I can't make you any promises that the conflict will be resolved, but we can figure out how to, help you manage when they, reoccur. Something like that. But it's an authentic interest.
So it's interesting that you used the word manage. And I believe it was Mr. Wheeler who used the word overcome, right? And so how do we work with families and we work with the youth to overcome the challenges that they feel they're facing within their family unit?
Mm.
Tori?
Shut that down. And Gail, I want to say it's an honor to be here with you too, my sister. I'm learning a lot.
Likewise, my brother. Thank you.
Well, you know, it was Malcolm X who said, of all our studies, it is history that is best qualified to reward our research. And one of the things that we do with people is we share history with them. You know, we come from a background where we've overcome a lot. You know, at one time we were in servitude until 1865, you know. And then what do you do with freedom? Now you have to be responsible, now that you have some freedom, you know. So we have to show young people that there are people who came before them that had even greater odds than we think we had, and they overcame, you know. So we have to share with them stories of some of the great people in our lives, and even some of the people that may be in their own communities and their own families. Like you, Miss Kelly. I mean, you saw a need for something that maybe somebody else that you may have worked for wasn't doing enough of, or whatever the situation. What inspires you to create an organization that is now helping people to save their lives? So you stepped out on faith and created Sanctuary of Hope, which has given all these people a new chance at life. Had you not done the work that you did, we wouldn't be sitting here talking today. And there would be a lot of young people that would be maybe in prison somewhere, or, you know, who knows? So even your example is something that we should be sharing with young people and say, hey, look at Miss Kelly and look at what she's doing. Look at what she's done and where she came from. So I think we have to utilize our own examples, our own history, to show young people that they can transform their lives. They can overcome. So that's my answer.
Absolutely. And thank you. I'll add to that too. I believe that overcoming and managing is subjective. And, you know, if I sit with the family, you know, the goal is to never identify a patient. Sometimes parents want to do that. Sometimes the youth want to do that. The patient, that was my mom and dad. They're the ones that's tripping, right? And then the parents are like, fix my son, fix my daughter, right? So, you know, sitting in a room with a family, you know, there is no identified patient with a family, right? It's a system. And the way this behavior is, it affects the entire system, right? So the goal is to stabilize it. Managing and overcoming is internal. So the goal will always be to, you know, how do you handle your own emotions? How do you overcome your own anxiety when a dad doesn't change, when a mother doesn't change, right? Or they're changing much slower than you are. So how do you do that? So developing those resources inside always starts with assertiveness. It always starts with those interpersonal skills that can be developed. Someone said earlier, we wish that parenting came with a guide, but it doesn't. But learning that takes time.
Yango, very interesting, talked a lot about positivity, being focused on the positive during his whole transition process. So what role do you think, and I shouldn't even say what role do you think it even plays? How important is this whole notion of positivity for young people, especially when they're facing adversity? How do we get them to see, you know, or have a positive outlook on their current situation and where we're trying to get them to go?
Yes. Well, you know, there's this philosophy of a glass of water being half full or half empty, you know, and so what we have to get young people to see is the glass is always half full. You have to look at what you do have as opposed to what might be missing in your life. Yes, there are going to be things that are missing, There are going to be pieces that are lost that you need to find or rediscover. But what do you have right now? Okay, I have shoes on my feet. I have clothes on my back. I'm eating every day, and I have a place to live, right? So you have somewhere to start. And we have to make young people understand that they are worthy of life. They're worthy of having a good life, and of living a good life. And with that kind of approach to education and approach to working with young people, they will begin to feel as if they are worthy, that they deserve a good life. And they can look at themselves as positive opposed to negative, And we just have to help them again in that process of self-discovery, self-identity, And one of the things we do in my program is a process called knowledge, plan, and action. I wrote a curriculum that I call the root curriculum. So it makes you go back to the root or the beginning and then assess your life from the beginning of your life up until now. And knowledge is where you learn everything, you study and you research. Plan is when you take the information and organize it and strategize. And action has something to do with being intrinsically linked to something called courage. You have to have the courage to act on what you know and what you develop. A lot of people have great plans and they never do anything with them, So we have to encourage young people to take stock of self, to believe in themselves and to feel their greatness, their inner greatness. You are just as worthy and just as great as anybody else on this planet, And we make them look at videos of Muhammad Ali. I am the greatest. I am the greatest. And really believe that, and then just move forward in your life from there.
Great.
I can add a little something to that too. I was thinking about my son earlier, as Torrance brought up earlier. My son is, he's a very extraordinary person. He just is. And I would have to say most of the staff, well, all the staff, Sanctuary of Hope, just extraordinary, right? And so I was just thinking about the importance of those relationships, and sometimes the youth, they don't know those strengths yet. And so being able to really, I think it's our duty as case managers, life coaches, mentors, counselors, the list goes on. I think it's our duty to always be the investigator of those strengths. Mm-hmm. And when we can see those strengths, we talk about it, we elaborate it, we point it out in them, and we remind them of those strengths. And so I believe that when they cannot find that positivity, it is our job to find it. It is our job to reinforce it, to celebrate it, and to even find what they think is the smallest, to magnify it.
I think my son kind of demonstrates what we all really know about youth and youth development is that youth are able to thrive, they are able to address and get past their crises when they have a strong, loving, caring, supportive person in their corner. And whether that person is someone at a school, someone who's designated as a mentor, it's having that person who can be a sounding board to listen, but also a person who can help be a cheerleader as well on that young person's behalf. And I know, Tori, a lot of the work that you currently do with CMN, BMN, and your other programs are kind of centered around helping young people in that aspect of mentorship and learning. So can you weigh in a little on kind of what you believe are some of the major tenets of the whole mentorship piece of this in helping young people, especially when they're struggling with their families, and how that sometimes translates into when they're struggling with their families, they're not performing well in the educational setting. When they're struggling with their families, they're not able to perform well in an employment setting. So if you can you share or weigh in on that?
Yes. I can just tell you what we do. And, you know, by the grace of God, we've been very successful. 100% of our 12th graders graduate from high school and are in college or the military or working a job. 100%. And this is in an environment where for where African American youth, you know, are less than 30% graduating. And so it's only because at the end of the day, we teach 9 principles: spirituality, culture, career, education, economics, politics, health, family, and that the core of the curriculum is personal responsibility. So we make them understand that you really can't change anyone else. That no matter or in spite of whatever happened with your mother or your father, that you have a responsibility for your life. You know, and we impress upon them that you really have to understand that at the end of the day, you're going to have to help yourself. You know, you're going to have to believe in yourself to make it. Because if you don't believe in yourself, no one's really going to believe in you. If you don't love yourself, then you're going to be looking for love, you know, from other people, or looking for someone else to solve your issues or to make you feel good about yourself. And that's not a good position to be in. So we really start with the human being. You know, it's a spiritual experience that happens in my program. It's not so much about academics. The academics will come when a person loves themselves enough to say, you know, I have to get my homework done. I can't hang out in the street. You know, I have to finish this paper. I can't look at TV right now. So when you can help a person to discover themselves, and then we teach a three-step process called infatuation, reality, and commitment. It's a 3-step process that has much to do with relationships. It could be a relationship with someone else of another sex, or it could be a relationship with your job or a career. And at the infatuation stage, everything looks fine. At the reality stage, things start to change, and you have to confront some truths that maybe you didn't want to deal with, or you're not prepared to deal with. But if you can deal with those realities, then you can get to the stage of commitment, where now you can commit to something and see it through until its natural course unfolds. And so there's different techniques, but at the end of the day, it's impressing upon young people that you're responsible for your life, and we will help you. We can't save you. You can save yourself, you see. And so I can just say that approach has been very successful. You know, very few young people want to get out of the program because they love it, because it's about them. It's not about me, it's about you. Okay? So that's in a nutshell. I could go on all day, but I don't want to overtalk because I want to hear what Gail has to say. I want to see Gail.
No, you covered it. You covered it, Torrance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he covered it. I mean, he nailed it.
Great. And so we're going to get or segue into kind of how are we going to keep our families intact? Because I think what's really important in this whole conversation is, one, we need to start paying attention to our young people, our children, whether they're our biological children, whether they are children or young people within our village, our community. We have to start carving out time and start paying attention to their social, emotional well-being. We have to start paying attention to the environment that may be impacting them. Gail, you mentioned the word trauma, and I don't want to take for granted that most people know what trauma is or being trauma informed when we're talking about reuniting family, addressing family dynamics, or as well as family dynamics that are part or may lead to some of the family conflict. So can you give us a briefly quick nutshell of what is trauma, and how do we look at resolving family issues through a trauma-informed lens?
Yes, so very briefly, you know, trauma are those adverse experiences that destabilize us internally. What may be traumatic for one person may not be so traumatic for another. Trauma is, it's distressing memories, it's dreams, it's, being triggered. It could be scents, it could be sounds, it could be just, rethinking about everything that occurred. And so being trauma informed is just really about, never blaming a person for their behavior, never blaming them for their experiences, but really asking the question of what happened to you? What happened to you? Not what did you do? Why did you make that choice? Why were you there? Why were you wearing that? Right? It's really about, what happened. And so that is what trauma is. Trauma informed is just caring for a person, knowing that they bring adversities. They bring some things that they can't say out loud yet with them, and being very careful in how we nurture and how we care for them. And when it comes to resolving that, I mean, it's a journey. It is a journey. I wish I could say that there was, a 1, 2, 3 step formula, but I always recommend mental health care. Obviously, I do believe in that extended village, those case managers and life coaches who are trauma informed. I believe in the priest. I believe in the rabbi. I believe in the pastor, this a spiritual community. I believe all of those factors come in play when it comes to resolving that. And being patient, knowing that those memories can be there for a long time, but they are not as distressing when a person feels loved. They feel that they are, waited on with care and protection and empathy. But it's a process, it's a journey.
So going back to family strengthening, keeping our families intact, reunifying our families when our families are in crisis. And we want to be able to kind of leave our audience with tools, tools to one, how do we start the conversation, or how do we start having communications with loved ones within our household unit? And I'm using the word household again, because family is defined many different ways. Some people live in households where everyone is related by blood, but then there are a lot of young people who are in households that are not related by blood. And so that whole household family unit, depending on its composition, is not the same. But how do we start with the communication? How do we start with identifying some of those concerns? And then how do we, again, end with reuniting, unifying our families? So if there were some tools or nuggets that we could share with the audience, what would some of those nuggets be?
Okay. Torrance, you want to go?
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gail. Number one, you have to impress upon people the importance of developing their own definition for what a family is. The name of my organization is family, and one of the reasons I named it family is because I wanted to define for myself, not what society said, not what scientists or social scientists said, but what I could discern for myself what a family was. And it didn't necessarily have much to do with just blood.
Right.
It had a lot to do with relationships, and so when you empower yourself enough that you can define for yourself what a family is, then you can put in place some tools that will help you to communicate. One of the things that my daughters and I are doing right now, we're reading a book called The 4 Agreements. I don't know if you guys heard that book.
Mm-hmm.
Is helping us to become closer, to communicate and have discussions about something that might be important to all of us. These 4 agreements, be impeccable with your words. Don't take everything personally. And it goes on and on and on. So, reading a book together, doing something that's special and unique for your family that really might not have anything to do with what happens on the outside of your home. But again, you have to define for yourself what family is. If it's you and your auntie, that's a family. If it's you and your good friend, who you guys have just fell in love with each other over the years, and that's your good friend. That's family, you know. Some of us are closer to friends than we are actual blood family members. If you think about it, right? But, hey, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know. But we have to have that courage again to craft our own life, our own definitions of what family means. We have to go beyond just the normalcy of sitting in front of a television set, get out and go exercise together, take up yoga or something like that, some kind of habit like riding a bike together. We have to do special things that help us to develop a relationship. It's not going to develop on its own. You have to work at it. So I would just put that out there quickly.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. So those post reunification needs are going to look different for every family, first of all. So I would tell family members and those subsystems of parent, child, auntie, uncle, returning to a foster mother, whoever you are, that those needs are going to be different. And so don't be demoralized if your family looks different than someone else's. So something that you can do is definitely, there has to be a renegotiation of the parental role, right? Or any role of the family. So renegotiating, having a sit down and talk about, what is it going to look like now that I'm 24 and I'm back in the house, right? Okay, I want to have an extended curfew, right? If I do this. So, really sitting down, spending time on renegotiating those roles. Mm-hmm. As Taryn said earlier, that family bonding, what does that look like now? That's important. When there's a prolonged, separation from any family member, you have to rebuild trust again. Right. So knowing that rebuilding trust is going to take some time too. The routines now, talking about that, will be the new routines in our house, right? And then how, as Taryn said earlier, that redefining of the relationship, that's really important. What is that going to look like now? And then I want to tell any family watching, any youth that's watching, your family's resilient. Your family's resilient. And you'll always be looking and reinforcing and validating your family's resilience. And that needs to be the background. That needs to be the foundation of your building these new rules and these new roles. And having to communicate that is important.
Great. And so we're about to wrap up because we've already reached this 2-hour mark and an hour mark within our own conversations. So would you like to share or leave with our audience some takeaways from today's conversations of what you've learned and what you hope that they will be able to take back to their own communities?
I guess I'll go first. The very fact and reality of you hosting this forum is an answer. It's one of the solutions. We have to talk to each other and listen to each other. And I think it starts there with communication. I know people say that all the time, but it's one thing to say that, and it's another thing to actually invest the time to communicate. I have one of my very best friends in the world, and one thing that we talk about all the time is the importance of communication and of listening, checking in with each other. How do you feel? What's going on with you? How do you feel? What's happening in your life? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything that you need from me that I'm not giving you right now? And so this science of communication is critically important. And when that happens, people feel that you're invested in them, that you're not just around them physically, but that you're spiritually connected because you're actually listening, not only with your ear, but with your heart. And I think it's critically important that we develop these listening skills and these communication skills and invest in each other. We have to just understand how critically important it is to take the time to invest in each other, in each other's lives, and be there for each other. And I guess that's one of the definitions of love.
It is a great definition of love. That means that we see you. I see you.
Absolutely.
I see you, Janet Kelly.
You too. Ms. Gail?
Sure. So my takeaway from this event, again, thank you so much. This has been just a treasure. It really is. So thank you again, Ms. Kelly. Restoration it requires a village. And, you know, no matter how great, how experienced, your expertise, you know, your background, your family, you know, that's all great, but it requires a village for everyone. And so that's the takeaway. Parents, conversations like these, mentors, clinicians, CEOs, right? Life coaches, it just goes on. And how I wish every youth, every person, you know, had a village of people who just really care authentically.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I want to say I appreciate you all for joining us for our second annual Family Instability and Reunification. I think you two were amazing thought leaders and really left our audience with something to really think about, and also go back into their communities and start implementing. And so before I close today's conversation, I think there are some key things that came out of our discussion today. And it's something that we have to center our mind around. So, a couple of key things. One thing that Tori said is that when we're talking about family strengthening, youth relationships, we have to put in the work. And the work is two-way, or it's three ways. It's the work that we have with our young people, with helping them tap into their resiliency, helping them to understand where they currently are, as well as helping them to explain or communicate what's happening to them, and doing it in a way that's non-judgmental, so that we're able to connect and create that pathway to family reunification, and also a pathway to strengthening the family unit. The other thing is that our families are resilient. I mean, the whole notion of a family could be in conflict, a family could be in crisis, but yet find means to overcome those challenges and adversities in order to reunify demonstrates how resilient our families are. And when we're talking about our families, are we looking at reunification? Are we looking at strengthening our families through a trauma-informed lens, where we're truly understanding what are the tenets of that are associated with the adversities that factor into the conflict, that factor into the trauma, so that we're able to, as Gail had mentioned, negotiate, right? But not only negotiate, understand what's happening, so that we could work on those things within the family unit so that the families can reunify. One most important thing that everyone has mentioned, and this started with Myson, was that we have to have family love. Because we can't have the movement if love isn't felt in the process. And so family love is the ultimate key to ensuring that our families stay intact. And whether that family love shows up in our family bonding activities, whether it shows up at the dinner table and we're having discussions where we're learning about each other at the table, to other kind of family activities outside of the dinner table, but just being present. Because I think even being present in itself is one huge key component of showing or demonstrating family love. And so I do want to thank you all for, again, participating. I want to say thank you to our audience who have been with Sanctuary Hope since our inception. We're almost celebrating 10 years now come July of providing services within the South Los Angeles and South Bay region. I do want to offer to any young person or family that are going through a transition and are dealing with family conflict or issues that may result in a young person thinking about leaving the home, as well as a young person who may have left the home, and you are moved, right, by this conversation to reunite and connect. You're more than welcome to contact us. We are here. One of the ways in which you can connect with us is by calling us on the phone, connect with us via social media or by email, and we will post all of that information after we conclude this this conversation. And so again, I want to say thank you to our guests, thank you to our thought leaders, thank you to our audience, and please keep the family love alive. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.